seeing what is everyone's feeling about Happy Friday, by the way. About Friday, let's see what is going on in the world. What do we want to talk about? Uh, I know one thing that seems very concerning to me is it seems like Russia is just going to. I don't. Okay, here's the issue I have. If you guys haven't been following the news, Russia has been kind of like poking at everyone's airspace and borders and whatnot. And this is something that I feel like maybe someone has knows more about it, but it seems like this is something they do regularly. It's just that the news never covered this before, that where Russia would go into other people's territory. I don't know. You guys saw. I woke up and then the headline that I saw was Russian bombers intercepted by U.S. jets over Alaska, and I was like, that doesn't sound good. And I know they had that thing with, was it in Poland earlier, and then I'm like trying to get reports on this because I'm like, it's not every day you wake up. I'm sorry, guys. Message? No. All right. It's not every day you wake up and you see news coverage on Russian bombers in U.S. airspace, and I'm watching a guy break it down, and he's saying like, oh, it happens, but I'm like, I don't ever remember seeing this in the news. I don't know. I just thought that that was a weird way to start a Friday. you know, just potential world war kind of news going on. Let's see what else is going on. What do we want to talk about? We can talk a little more about Trump bailing out the farmers. I literally was talking about this yesterday on the live stream, and I was like, I feel like the farmers need to get bailed out, and bam! Literally, like within the next few hours, it almost feels like someone is watching, and they're like, you know what, that is a good idea. And I said it earlier. The farmers need to get bailed out. They should have been bailed out a while ago, because I was like, it seems like things are very dire for them. And the funny part is, I didn't get a chance to talk to my friend. I have a friend that he is a he's got like multiple thousands of acres out in like farm, I don't know, farm country. It's a buddy that I met online, and we talk, and I was talking to him about like the tariffs, the first round, and he was like, I was like, are the tariffs like killing you or what? And he's like, oh, we'll be fine. Trump will bail us out. He bailed us out in in term one, and I was like, yeah, but we're like, okay, you know what's really also very interesting is we're, what are we, 8 months into the presidency, and it seems like so much has happened. And so that's what I was talking to him about, and I was like, yeah, but the Trump term one, the tariffs hit, and then it was like literally within like pretty quickly, I felt like that they bailed out the farmers, and I was like, hey, it seems like it's been a while. And yeah, so farmers gonna get bailed out, not unexpected. But I think here's the issue that I have with this bailout thing. And did I talk about this before? I think I did. I think the issue is that the tariffs for farmers, like actual like, I believe the tariffs didn't actually really hit yet. That's what even Trump said it. The issue is that people are just not ordering American soybeans and whatnot. I think the bigger long term problem is they are just not gonna come back. Once you lose, okay, if you know, this is a weird thing about um, Trump as a businessman. Maybe it's because he does. He's more into like long term. real estate ish. He's got the golf courses. He does, and of course the MAGA hats. Probably one of the most successful things that he's done, but it doesn't seem. I don't know. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like he's a big um, products salesperson. You know, he sells real estate. He does real estate and stuff. Real estate is one of those things where I always felt like you're either gonna buy it or you're not. You know what I mean? Like you think about like let's just go all the way down to ground level. You think about like a real estate agent, right? What do they even do? Because they just handle the paperwork for you. You either have the money to buy the house, or you don't, and you either find the. It's not like the real estate agent built the house, right? So either you, they don't control the location of the house. It's built or it's not built, and it costs what it costs. It's not like you get a better real estate agent and they like change the price dramatically. I know they help you negotiate the price, but you either want it or you don't, or you're either gonna sell it or you're not. That's the thing about real estate. So I don't know if you need to be as business savvy to be involved in real estate. And this is where I'm saying about Trump, um, and his business acumen, where because I think the issue is that with the farmers, we're going back to the farmers. The issue is once China, because here's the thing, we are a large producer of soybeans and all kinds of like agriculture stuff, but in a lot of these categories, we're not actually number one in those categories. I forgot which one it is that what it was, and I didn't notice it before, but I did do some like looking into it. I just remember Brazil was the number one producer of it. I don't know, I forget. Anyways, once you lose, because here's the thing, it's hard for Americans to compete on price. That's a given, right? So once these people, like China or whoever, finds like the soybeans or whatever from a different market, the chances of them coming back are a lot harder. You're always trying to compete against like people that have lower prices with you that can produce something very similar. It doesn't have to be one. I think this is one thing I noticed about a lot of like American companies. They were always, at least, okay, this is just my experience with my father-in-law, for example. He he had a machine shop. He's retired now, but he would always do top end quality, which is nice. Like it's good. He always does the highest end grade of whatever that he can make, and then and it was going very well for the first, like, I don't know, for whatever that he how long he's been doing it, but from the time that I've known him and met them, I felt like the business slowly got eaten up by competitors, and it was because he made the top end grade all the time, right? And he's from a different generation where he didn't want to compromise on anything. Oh, oh, yeah, you gotta walk with me. He didn't want to compromise on anything, and he's very stubborn and whatnot. And his business started getting eaten up because, oh, here it is. Competitors started coming in, and they would make something, maybe not the lowest quality. I'm not talking like cheap. I'm talking like maybe just a grade below highest grade, whatever it is. Like, let's say you're making like, I don't know. I'm trying to think what did he make? He made like stuff that goes into machine parts, but they're like kind of almost like consumables. Like they go inside the machines. Let's just say a spring. Okay, that as an example. You don't the spring. Let's just say you have a machine, and it has a spring in there or some kind of part, and that part needs it has a use life, maybe 2 3 years or whatever, right? Every 2 or 3 years, you need to replace this part, and that's how it goes. Now he would make the highest grade of that part. He's like, oh, I don't want, and his thoughts are good. He's like, oh, I don't want it to go. If they buy it from me, I don't want it to go bad while they're using it. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, that's great. But and he would charge more because it takes him longer and it costs him more, like more like material costs and whatnot to make that part. And then every year they will order it again, and it was like a nice steady business for him until a competitor came, and they didn't make it as good, but they made it just low enough, you know. So let's say maybe this part gets replaced every year, and maybe for this example, maybe my stepfather, his part could last 2 years, right? But their policy is to replace it every year because they don't want to stretch it. So they don't need it to go 2 years. They just need it to last 1 year, right? And then the competitor came, made this almost the exact same thing. Maybe you did just a little bit lower grade. Maybe it doesn't last 2 years. Maybe it lasts a year and a few months, and it's gonna get replaced anyways. And they could charge a lower price. So he started losing business because of stuff like that. And how this relates to the farmers is, and even when he lowered his expectations, it's still those customers didn't come back. Every once in a while, they'll need like an emergency part made and whatnot. They'll come to him because he can, since he's a smaller machine shop, he can do a better job making onesie twosies, than the bigger shops. Bigger shops, they take longer to because they have more overhead, more tooling and stuff to do. Anyways, farmers, once they start losing the business relationships with these people, it's really hard for them to get the contracts back. That's what I'm saying. Like down the road, this is gonna have a long-term effect on some of these farmers who lose these contracts or lose these bids or whatever to someone else, because once these, let's just say South America, right? I think they're the top soybean, or they're coming up as the one of the big soybean people. Once they start getting good soybean money, you know what I'm trying to say? They get good soybean money, right? And they start ramping up their thing because these American farmers, they've been getting good soybean money for a little while now, and they've bought machinery, they've refined their process and whatnot. Once these other people start getting money too, they're going to start buying machinery and reinvesting into their business, and they're going to become more efficient and growing the soybeans and whatnot. And their prices, if they're already cheaper, can get cheaper, or their prices can stabilize and they'll just match prices. And then it'll be like, well, why do we need to buy from them again? We're developing the relationship, So yeah, that's I think that's a bigger concern. This is gonna have a long-term impact. Like even in Trump term one, when I think it was like China started buying soybeans and other stuff from other countries and pork and whatnot from other countries, some of them didn't come back. Didn't come back. Let's see what else. Oh, I think I talked about it in the video when they made the announcement, but I wanted to touch on this real quick. Is that I forgot where I heard this from, but the idea of the other countries buying our agriculture goods, like like pork and whatnot, is a very I guess I just never thought of it this way until I heard this, which is I thought was very interesting. It was like they're just talking about how when they're importing like let's just say pork, right? What they're actually importing is our water because water is one of those things that's really it's actually very it's not economical to to sell globally. Because think about it, a bottle of water or whatever is almost nothing, right? So it's one of those things that you have to make inside your country. Uh, no one buys water, but a lot of countries still need water, right? Because like just think about I remember growing up and seeing the commercials like those Africa commercials where like there's like droughts and whatnot and they don't have any water and so, but it's like expensive to send water somewhere. So to go around that, what you do is actually you import stuff that like crops and food and whatnot that uses a lot of water, and because the country that's selling it used a bunch of their water that you would not have to use now because you got it, the end product from them, and that's a way to import water. So let's go to the pork thing. The the pigs or whatever they have to eat, right? They I don't know, corn, oats, whatever, right? And that some farmer out here needs to use water to grow those crops at some point for those pigs, hogs, whatever to eat, right? So that's using water, and then those animals produce waste, and at some point that needs to get cleaned up, right? That's like toxic sewage that gets stuck here in America, while the other country gets the end product again, clean, no waste, right? Um, that's another resource that they don't have to clean up now. It just makes, if you actually break it down, it makes a lot of sense why you have another country grow the stuff and you just import it. It's just cleaner. Just think about like once you start having money, what's one of the first things people start thinking about? They don't want to clean up their house anymore, right? You get a maid, right, or a butler or whatever. That's if you have like a lottery, if you won the lottery and you have kind of like a bucket list of stuff or just things that you're gonna start doing. I bet you one of them is you're gonna hire a house cleaner, right? Because that's something you don't want to do anymore. So just magnify that out to the country, and as you know, America's one of the richest countries in the world. And what's one thing you don't want to do? You don't want to clean up. You don't want to be a maid, right? So one of our biggest exports out is pork, and pork makes a lot of waste. Our biggest biggest customer for our pork is China. And they've become rich now. And like I said before, what's the first thing you don't want to do when you start becoming rich? You don't want to be a maid anymore, and they don't want to clean up their waste. So what a win-win for them when they buy our pork. They get meat, they save water, right? And they don't have to clean up the waste because there's a there's a whole big industry in itself in just like cleaning up animal waste. It's good. All right, we're almost ready to press. There's a whole big industry in there. Let's see. All right. Well, let's jump off that topic. Let's get to something else. One thing I actually find very interesting. So today, well, it was like last night. They were prosecuting or indicting Comey, right? And everyone hates Comey. It doesn't matter. Your left side, right side, everybody hates Comey. So he's a good target to hit, right? Because Comey is like one of those people that everybody hates. It really doesn't matter. So no one has any sympathy for Comey anywhere. So he's a great target. But anyways, what I found interesting on the story is actually the attorney. So if you guys don't know the background on how Comey got indicted, there was like a 5 year statute of limitations on, you know, on the on his perjury thing that he did a while back, and it's next week is the end deadline for the statute of limitations on the Comey thing. And I imagine being Comey though, where you're like, it's coming up, and you're like, oh, I think I made it, just one more week, and the messaging inside the administration before was, oh, we don't have enough. There's not enough to indict him. Let's just let it go. And you're on the last week, and you know there's not enough, right? It's like it's a very hard. It's like a very very hard case. And if you know anything about prosecutors and whatnot, they don't like to lose. It's one of the things they hate the most, is to lose. And that's why they don't like to bring up cases that don't have legs. That right. So the case was hard, and Trump was demanding. Trump's a petty guy, and he wants someone to get, like, he wants some heads. He needs it. He needs some heads, and he demanded some heads, and no one would give him the heads. And then so he had to fire the guy that was in charge at the time, and then find someone that will do it. And this is the part where I find this, like, in a way, it's kind of inspiring. The most interesting part of this whole story, because I already know, and this is my prediction, is that Comey's gonna, the charges are gonna get dropped, or Comey's gonna get, he's gonna be all right. The most interesting part of this story is actually the attorney, the prosecutor, that they got, that Trump finally got handpicked to prosecute him. I find that part of the story actually inspiring, because if you know the background of this prosecutor lady, she is or was one of Trump's personal attorneys, and make sure this is right before I press. I don't want to get in trouble. She was one of Trump's personal attorneys. Yeah. Okay. And he found her on one of his golf courses, and she just showed up, and she was looking like a hottie body, and she had a suit on, and he basically was like, yes, you. And she is a insurance attorney, right? Which I have an insurance attorney as a friend. They're actually very interesting people. I actually recommend, if you go out in the world and you network with people, and you find yourself in the around someone and that's their profession, they're useful people, because anytime I have like traffic, like legal questions, I love to ask him, because his job is, he works for an insurance company, and his job is basically to see if the insurance company is liable for whatever the situation is. So what I like is, and so he knows the traffic laws and whatnot and situations like the back of his hand. And I love to like ask him, like, oh, if I get into a car accident and this happens and that happens, who's at fault here? And he would tell me, like, oh, if that happens, this happens, this person's at fault, or it's a split here, or like, I love those scenarios, because I don't know, a lot of times when I'm driving around, I'm like, oh my god, someone almost hit me, And then I have to think like, oh, if that did happen, whose fault would it have been? Anyways, this guy would tell me. Anyways, she's an insurance attorney. She, this is not her jam. She has no experience in any of this, and I, I, this is the part where I find it inspiring is because she has no experience in any of this. She is an attorney, yes, but the law is very big, and there's lots of parts, lots of different laws, right? And there's nuance to all of them, and she's got no experience, and she's doing this big, 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 big high-profile job now, and it's inspiring because that means that if you know the right people and you're just in the right place, she's literally the best example of right place, right time, because she got hired because and she was a former beauty contestant, I believe. Right, so she's got the look. She's a hottie body. That's what Trump likes. Nobody wants to look at. She's also a case that if you're good looking, you just things are just handed to you. Um, she has no experience in this, and the part I find inspiring about it is that you just never know when an opportunity arises for you. Like think about like Pete Hegseth is Secretary of Defense, War, whatever you want to call it, and he was a Fox News anchor. Like, can you imagine? You know, like he would being a news anchor is actually it's pretty hard, especially in this time and age. He was a news anchor, and you think, oh, I've done it. I made it. This is my path. This is my career. I'm a news anchor guy now. And then all of a sudden, who would have thought that his path would line him up to be Secretary of Defense? I mean, I bet you if you ask Pete Hegseth, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, where would he be in the future? This is not the future he would have thought that he would be in. Oh, speaking of Pete Hegseth, I saw today that he's ordering a super meeting. Have you guys heard this? He's ordering a meeting with basically the whole military, it seems like. They all have to come and meet with him. In one place, and everyone's freaking out because none of the generals, at least this is what they're telling us, none of the generals or people involved know what this meeting's about. It's highly unusual. All the news anchors and media were like, what's going on here? In the history of wartime, peacetime, whatever, this has never happened before. And usually if they even have something similar to this, you could do this remotely. There are like generals that are in like, I don't know, war zones. They're saying war zones and whatnot, deep corners of the world, dark shadows and alleyways that I'm imagining like some guy in like Cameroon, some that's sipping a espresso somewhere and he gets a letter that, you know, like he's in deep cover, and then he's in deep cover, and then some guy comes and delivers him an official like Department of War to Department of Defense letter that says that he's summoned, and he's like, what are you doing? Oh my, imagine if like we have like American James Bond and he's like in the middle of a gala, and then some guy comes up and is like, hey, you've been summoned to the American military meeting. And he's like, what? Americans? What? I'm not, I don't know. And people are like, what is going on? Because it seems like a big security risk And it's not okay. Here's the thing. The problem that I have with this is that it's I mean it's kind of like it makes sense because this administration is the media, the social media, the media administration, where everything has to be a spectacle, right? If you know, it's the this is the current climate. It's kind of like the idea of you don't take pictures, it didn't happen, right? And I would, I would be so, I would be surprised and shocked, and at the same time not surprised, not shocked if all this was for a photo op. Imagine if we spend millions and thousands and millions of dollars because these people need to get flown over here. There's people in all over the world. They need to get flown to this one location, and it would be crazy if it was just for a photo. like like or acknowledge like he's like acknowledge me as Secretary of War, like something petty. Oh my god. That would be insane. That would, or worst case scenario. Like I said, like I was trying to get to, this is a very public thing. You have all these people migrating, it's impossible to hide where you're going. Usually stuff like this I feel like should be done in secret. No one needs to know about this, right? What's that line? Real G's move in silent or whatever, you know. Um, yeah, it just this doesn't seem like something that needs to be out there, right? But it's happening, and I just feel like it's a security. I mean, think about it. If you were an adversary and you saw this, maybe it's a big honey trap. Who knows? But if you were an adversary and you saw this happening, I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, I'm done with my orders. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you guys later.